In this video, we're going to be talking about buying foreclosures from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Alright guys, so in previous videos I've talked about how much I love buying foreclosures from HUD. Most people know that Section 8 will help people that have a lower income rent property, but not as many people realize that Section 8 will also help people buy property. And when those properties go into foreclosures, HUD has a listing service just like Fannie Mae and just like Freddie Mac, and a certain procedure that they follow when they are selling these properties. So today what we're going to do is we're just going to hop into HUDhomestore.com. I'm going to show you some things. I'm going to talk about some experiences that I've had when purchasing from HUD, and we're going to analyze a property. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. All right, so right now we're on HUDhomestore.com, and I've just pulled up the state of New York, pulled up the listings for under $20,000, which right now there's not a lot from HUD available. But before I go into the listing that I'm actually going to look at, I'm going to point out a few things. First of all, if you notice right here where it says listing period, HUD has 3 listing periods. It's very similar to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. For a week or two when the house is first listed, it's only available to government agencies and nonprofit organizations, and that listing title is called lottery. So if you see a property on this website and it says the listing period is lottery, that means it's only available at this time for government agencies and nonprofits. Now, one of the reasons that I check HUD every day is because I want to be able to see properties while they're still in this listing phase, so that I might have even visited a property and taken a look at it before it ever gets to that point where it's available for investors to buy. And by doing that, I have a huge advantage when I'm bidding, because I can bid right away. If it's a house I really want, I can just bid, you know, as soon as it becomes available, as opposed to doing all my due diligence after it's been available for a while. The next thing I want you to notice is, if you look at this page right here, you can see that a couple of these have a status where it shows a little downward facing arrow. What that means is they originally listed this property for more money, and now they have lowered the price. And HUD will do that if they haven't gotten a buyer within a certain period of time. Usually it's a month or two, sometimes it's up to 3 months, then they'll lower the price. And what's really funny is when you go into bid for some of these properties, you might actually get your bid declined, and then a month or two later you'll go back, you'll check HUD Home Store, and they've actually listed the property for lower than what your bid was that got declined in the first place. So, you know, if you are having a hard time finding property in your price range, remember that you should just constantly follow these things. Don't get discouraged. Just keep an eye on these things, and you'll find out that a lot of them will drop significantly in price, and you just have to be watching this stuff every day. All right, so we're going to take a look at 324 Pleasant Avenue in Herkimer, New York. Never been there. Hope I'm pronouncing it right. And we're just going to take a look at some of the things that you should be aware of when you're looking on HUDhomestore.com. So the only thing I'm really going to show you on this particular page is that, you know, where it says that FHA financing is available. It is available with an insured escrow. If it said uninsurable or UI, that would mean that it would only be available to cash purchasers, which, you know, I like those houses because that means that there's not going to be as many people that are able to purchase this property, so it kind of makes it easier for me to get the property. The upside is that HUD believes that this property has less than $10,000 worth of repairs. Most of the time, if you have more than $10,000 worth of work that needs to be performed on a property, then you cannot get a loan on that property. So that's good news. We're going to pop over here into the amenities section. That just gives us some real basic info. You know, there's 2 spaces and a driveway. The foundation type is basement, and the basement is unfinished. When you go over here to this Addendums tab, you can see there's all kinds of disclosures and things like that. And most of these are junk, but you'll want to look through all of them briefly, at least until you get familiarized with this system. The 2 things that you're really looking for are the PCR and the ECR. The The PCR stands for Property Condition Report, and the ECR stands for Environmental Condition Report. So the ECR is more for letting you know, is this property in a hurricane zone? Is this property in a floodplain? Something like that. And if it's not in a floodplain, then your, property insurance is going to be a lot lower. So, but we're going to look at the PCR. In this case, they actually combine the PCR with the lead-based paint disclosure. That's not normally the case. One of the cool things about this particular PCR is they're letting us know what their inspector thinks needs to be repaired. Now, I don't take this report as gospel at all. It's pretty good at telling you what's broken, but it's not always going to give you everything that's broken, and it's definitely not good for telling you what's functional. If it says something is functional, you're still going to want to check it out because, for instance, they might say that the HVAC is great, but when you get to that property, that HVAC unit might be completely gone. So, don't ever take these reports as gospel, but they are great for doing, your preliminary online analysis. So, in this case, they're saying that we need to replace the kitchen floor. We need to treat and paint defective paint surfaces. We need to repair and paint the rear wood deck, and we need to repair the plumbing system. And if you go down a little further, you'll get to this page. Oftentimes, this is the only page in the entire PCR, and it'll give you some information on different parts of the house. So in this case, they're telling us that at the time of the inspection, the utilities were on. They tested the HVAC. Everything looked good. They tested the electrical supply. Oftentimes, the utilities will be off, and they will hook the electrical supply up to a generator and test it that way. In this case, they're saying it's good. Built-in appliances, tested and functional. I believe they have some window units in this house, so that's probably what they're talking about. I don't know if they have any kind of stove or anything else like that. Actually, it looks like they're saying stove, range, oven is okay, so maybe there is a stove in this house. That'll be great. As far as the plumbing goes, it says there's a missing section of plumbing, so they were not able to test the plumbing. Now, that's not the same thing as the drain lines, but as far as the actual water supply and everything that goes from the water supply to the faucets and so on and so forth, they couldn't test any of that. So that is good information to have as well. And then as far as the sewer, septic, drainage, whatever system, you can see that they said they poured water and antifreeze in the drains and everything was fine. And then the roofing, they took a look at the roof. It looks like they might have actually gotten on top of the roof, inspected all the peaks, valleys, ridges, so on and so forth, and they said that it was totally fine. Now, again, I can't stress enough, guys, I would not take this report as gospel by any means. I have gone to, I don't know if I'd say hundreds, but possibly hundreds of properties that were sold by HUD, and these PCRs are very often inaccurate. So not always. They're right quite a bit too, but there's numerous times that I could tell you about where they were totally and completely inaccurate. So keep that in mind. All right, so a couple things that you should know about HUD. Number one, when you're bidding, it's pretty easy. You can have your real estate agent bid online for you. If you are a real estate agent, then you can bid online for yourself. The earnest money is usually $500 for the houses in the price range that I'm looking for. And I think it's $500 until it gets up to $50,000 or more. I could be wrong about that, but I've only ever had to pay $500 in earnest money. Now, when you're bidding on these properties, you never, ever, ever want to bid asking price when you first place your bid. At least I don't, because HUD will always counterbid in my experience. So I have bid asking price for a house, and HUD came back and counteroffered at $2,000 more. And it ended up taking me like 2 months to buy that house, and I still ended up having to pay over asking price. So never do that unless you really, really, really want this house. HUD does not usually go down as much as some of the other banks and listing services will, like Fannie Mae. They're usually going to stick with the 85% mark. You can sometimes get a property for 80% or even 75 or 70%, but usually it's going to be 85% of whatever the listing price is. And if there's a bunch of competition in the area, then obviously you're going to have to pay more. So I'll typically start out bidding 80%, and then I'll move up to whatever my max bid is after that. Sometimes I'll even bid twice, but usually it's going to be 80%, and then I'll they'll counter offer, and then I'll go with 85% or sometimes 90%. All right, so we're going to go ahead and analyze this property now. So I'm going to go ahead and pop over into Zillow because Zillow has more pictures. And we're just going to take a quick look, show you the house. This is, again, the one that's in Herkimer, New York. You can see it's a 2-story house. It's about 1,200 square feet. It's got a deck in the backyard. The kitchen, linoleum floor will probably need to be replaced. It looks like they do have the stove and the fridge, so that's awesome. See, we've got boiler over here. We've got some issues with the wall and the ceiling that need to be fixed. That's just paint for the most part and a little bit of elbow grease. This floor right here isn't pretty, but I would have to inspect it. You could give it a good cleaning, and you might actually be able to keep it the way that it is. Same with this floor. It's not too bad. A little bit of paint, so on and so forth. Carrying on, all this looks decent. Definitely going to paint, possibly do some flooring in here. This is some painting and maybe some sheetrock work. I can't really tell what's going on right here, but the floor does not look good. We'd probably do something with that floor, but again, maybe not. It just depends. Bathroom looks fine. This is actually a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, I think, but I'm pretty sure it's 1.5 bath, but it might be 1 bath. Let's see what HUD says, because this says 3.1. HUD says 3.1. Okay, so it's just a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. We're going to take a look at the rentometer real quick. You can see I've already got it pulled up, and the median rent is $800. The average rent is $873. Now, I also checked Onboard Navigator. I did a comparative analysis to another zip code in the area. So we're just going to be looking at the right-hand side, but you can see that the HUD fair market rent is $1,027. Now, I usually chop $90 to $100 off of that, and I'd say it's very safe to say, though, that Section 8 would probably go for about $900 for this particular house. So I also pulled up the tax info on the county website, and you can see that the taxes for this property are only $408.80. There was a couple other cool things that I'm just really quickly going to show you, and you'll find this on a lot of county websites. They'll have extra information, so anytime you find yourself in that position, you'll want to look through all of it. And as you can see, if we go down here to improvements, by the way, this is a really old house. They talk about, they've got one improvement that was from 1902. I don't know if that's accurate, but I kind of think it probably is. They added a shed or something in 1990. They covered the porch in 1986. But sometimes you'll find some interesting stuff. Sometimes, if you're buying a house that's 100 years old like this one, you might want to know when was the plumbing last done. And if that particular area requires permits, then you might be able to see, okay, well, they completely redid all the plumbing with PEX pipe in 2006. So keep that in mind, especially when you're buying older houses. You might be able to find some additional information on these county websites, and that's really the only reason that I showed you the taxes on this particular site as opposed to somewhere else. All right, so going back to this PCR, if I go back in here to the addendums area, I'm just going to kind of do a quick analysis based on the repairs that they had mentioned. If we look over here, they say we need to replace the kitchen floor. Now, you guys know I'm a big fan of using tile, especially in kitchens. You can also use linoleum, but tile is very cheap, especially if you buy the right stuff. You can get this entire kitchen floor if it's 300 square feet, and it's definitely not 300 square feet, but you could get that entire kitchen floor done for $1 a square foot. So for kitchen floor, I put $300, right? Painting and repairing the deck, that's probably going to be, some stain and then maybe a little bit of structural support. So I put $150. That's very doable. Interior paint, you're looking at $300. And as far as your plumbing goes, they mentioned that there were missing sections of plumbing. Now, plumbing is one of those things that if you do it yourself, it's very inexpensive. If you hire somebody to do it, it's very expensive. So I am basing these figures and being very generous with the figures, but basing them on the fact or on the hopes that you will be doing this work yourself. So I put $500 there. That's a total repair budget of $1,250, which means even if a ton of things go wrong, you're probably still going to be okay. You're going to have a lot of extra room in your budget for this particular house. Like I said, if you were going to rent this house out to a Section 8 tenant, you could easily get $900. At least I think you could. But for the purposes of this video, and because I don't always plan for the best, we're going to go off this median rent price of $800. So $800 times 12, that's $9,600 a year. and we've got some yearly expenses. Now, how I got this total was basically taking the amount that they pay in taxes every year for the property, and then I kind of averaged out my yearly expenses on any given house, added a couple $100s to it, and totaled all that together, and that's how I came up with the yearly expenses. Oftentimes I'll do like 2 times the yearly rent or monthly rent or whatever, but in this case I'm trying to give you a little bit more accurate representation of what I experience. One thing I should mention about the expenses though is that I manage my own properties, and that really keeps costs low. Now, if you had a property management company that was handling all that for you, then you would add about $1,200 a year to this figure. So when all is said and done, we look like we're going to be making about a yearly profit of $8,191. And I'm going to multiply that by 2.5 because you guys know that I like to get my money back in 2.5 years. That's our total budget for the property, $20,477.50. And you can see right now, just off this preliminary analysis, it looks like our total all-in cost is going to be around $16,350. I didn't really talk much about the purchase price, but that's 85%, a little more than 85% of what the asking price is currently on this property. So $15,100 for a purchase price, $1,250 for the repairs. That gives us a total all-in cost of $16,350. And you can see, again, we have over $4,000 of wiggle room to still get our money back in that 2.5-year range. If everything goes right, though, $8,191 divided by our expected price of that should be $16,350. If everything goes crystal, just perfect, you can see we're getting a 50% rate of return. So we're getting our money back within 2 years of purchasing the property. So that's awesome. So that's pretty much it, guys. Buying a property from HUD is no different than buying from any other bank or entity, other than they are a little funny about owner occupants, investors, so on and so forth. And one last tip, you should never, ever, ever lie and say that you're an owner occupant. That can get you in huge trouble. You can go to jail for that. You can get fined up to $250,000 for that. So never do that. It's not worth it. But check this stuff every day. Look at these properties before investors even know that they exist, and you'll be extremely glad that you did. So that's all for this video, guys. If you liked it, please like, comment, subscribe, share with your favorite groups on Facebook, and I will see you guys in the next video.